So imagine walking into work and finding your entire day's tasks, scheduling meetings, resolving IT issues, data and reports already planned out and handled, not by a human assistant, but by a self driven AI. Not just any AI, but one that thinks, learns, and adapts, orchestrating dozens of moving parts as if it were your team's silent conductor. Sound futuristic? Well, it's already here. And it's called Agentic AI.
So, Steele, artificial intelligence, broad term means it does tasks that normally requires human intelligence, right? Like understanding language, making decisions, recognizing images, etc. So beyond generative and agentic AI, there's other ones out there. That's the only ones we really hear about. So besides those, there are like rule-based AI, analytical AI, reactive AI, which is acts only on current data, limited memory AI, learning agents. Those are out there as well. But let's talk about generative AI before we get into agentic. So tell me a little bit about generative AI.
So, generative AI is kind of described as reactive intelligence. We've all probably heard of the term, and tools like ChatGPT or those AI image generators that create content once you give it a prompt. But it's reacting, it's waiting for something before something happens. It waits for you to ask it something, then creates the text or image or whatever on demand. Some examples, but obviously ChatGPT, general purpose, although they have like Sora 2, which is creating videos now from AI, which is wild. I think I saw a full episode of South Park or something that was
Wow.
completely generated by AI. You've got Google Gemini, which is nested in a Google workspace. So, like generating PowerPoints, trying to be productive, searching for emails, that kind of stuff. Microsoft Copilot, Claude, which is definitely ranking high up there on the leaderboards for AI, Perplexity, et cetera, goes on. Kind of around the image space, you have Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, Dolly 3, uh, Synthesia. Terrible at pronouncing that one. There's so many out there used for different purposes, kind of waiting for you to orchestrate it, to tell it what to do. And I think the results are just getting better and better. So I guess I would ask, is there anything that you've used around the Gen AI space, any of those models, anything from a product perspective, maybe how often, and then has it changed any of your behavior, how you kind of think about search? And then how do you trust it? I think is a big question too.
I started using ChatGPT like just like everybody else does, and started trying to depend on it a little bit. It was fine. I was, it was okay. I like Perplexity. Don't know why, but with the type of personal stuff that I do, either from just research on just things I do, music or fishing or whatever it is, or even my Bible reading, religious and stuff like that, it's good. And especially my technical stuff. When I'm start looking at projects of implementing various technologies, it'll help me with summaries and implementation guides and things like that a little better than ChatGPT does. It seems to be more pointed, but I do use it. In fact, I don't use like Google search anymore. I'll use
Really?
like a little icon on my phone for Perplexity. I'll hit Perplexity and I'll search there first.
I'm perplexed. That's wild. I still use Google search. I guess for me, I'm very cognizant of the fact that there is part of this technology that I don't quite understand, and there's so much evolving in the space daily. I think every couple months there's some innovation, something's changed, something is new. And so I'm still, even myself, kind of figuring out, well, we have this technology now. So in my day to day, where does it make sense? Where am I going to see the gains, the productivity, the value? If we were to put metrics around this, I've used this 6 times what's been my gain out of that. And I think where I've seen gains is more on the in-depth research, large data kind of questions where I can think through that really quickly. But for things like search or Google search, I haven't used that to replace it yet. I'm maybe that's something I'll have to try out in this coming week and see how that goes. And that can be some kind of experiment that I can
Yeah.
run.
Yeah.
But what's been your level of trust?
But it's weird. For years, I didn't have problems like entering my phone number or my name in like Google search, but yet I don't do this with Perplexity or ChatGPT. I don't know why. It is no difference. I mean, their stuff, Google is selling my name everywhere. You know, why do I treat it so differently? I guess I should. Maybe that's a good thing. I'm starting a new habit. I'm not giving so much of my personal information. I definitely don't put company information in or our clients, direct things of our employees, things we're doing
Hmm.
directly, because that could lead to some issues with me and my employment. It's just, I don't want to take that chance. So, and I don't really need to. All I'm trying to do is get a basics for something, and I can
Hmm.
use my own intelligence to discern where I go from there. So I think I trust it enough to bring me that raw information and give me a base foundation to move forward with.
Hmm. I think that's a really good point. That's powerful too, as and when you put it in that context, that makes sense. The level of effort to get what you just said from a Google search versus an engine that's doing all the searching and putting all this stuff together for you from all these various sources, massive time difference, massive time savings, and then you can get to your next steps much more quickly.
Well,
Touche.
I was telling my
Touche.
wife, I said, "Do you ever use ChatGPT or Perplexity?" And she goes, "No." I go, "You use Google search?" She goes, "Yes." And I go, "For me, the first 10 returns are paid sponsors. So it takes a while to get into something I really even care about." Right? That wasn't paid response. And she did her reaction is, and I said, "I don't get that with Perplexity." She goes, "For now." And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. It probably, one day it's going to be just as bad, right? Because, it's just the way life is, right? Money talks. But
Yeah.
for right now, I get better returns because of those things. I don't trust the search engine because it's driving me into places where these sponsors, these people,
Mhm.
payments are coming from. So,
I and it's tough, and I don't want to get into like the philosophical or political piece. Feels like there should be some type of kind of financial, kind of from the finance world. You have a financial fiduciary making sure that when they're taking care of your money, it's in your best interest. How they act feels like there should be something similar on the AI piece, because kind of to that point, I can imagine this going into, hey, have you thought about this product or this product or this product to solve your problem?
mhm.
So right now it's very much exploring what use cases are out there, but it feels like it always comes back to advertisements,
Yeah,
etc.
it,
So
it does. All
I,
right,
I'm yeah.
let's talk about agentic AI. So let's start with the basics. So, like you've mentioned, agentic AI it acts autonomously.
Hmm.
It adapts in real time. It solves multi-step problems. It's built from platforms that use large language model, the LLMs, uh, advanced reasoning. How does this differ from Gen AI? How does it jump in from and become more proactive than reactive? How's it using reasoning? How does it not get stuck like Gen AI in a reactive mode?
So I mean, you touched upon a couple different points. If you think about a help desk agent,
Hmm.
or you think about a knowledge base, you think of standard operating procedures. There's steps that we take to solve a problem, and agentic agents are loaded with some sort of knowledge base of problems they can solve, roles that they can fill, and then they're usually connected to tools of some kind So they have capabilities and they're aware of what those capabilities are. And then there's usually some kind of monitoring and trigger mechanism that kind of spurs them into action. They don't need specific instructions to take action. It's certain things in the environment that are happening that are a call to action for them. And so agentic agents set goals, they break down big objectives into smaller steps. They adapt to changes and they can even collaborate with other agents. You've got MCP, Model Context Protocol. I think Google has A2A, which is agent to agent. And so there's multiple capabilities that these agents have to work together with other agents, and AI just feels like it's everywhere. And whether it's using bots to help write your emails or tools that create art or music, I just heard a really, really cool version of Before I Forget by Slipknot that was redone with AI in like a Motown soul version of it, which was really
Wow.
cool. It
Yeah.
was hip, it was groovy, I dig it. But what if AI could do more than just respond to what we tell it? Instead of typing the prompts, what if it could kind of think ahead, make plans, and make decisions? And I think that is pushing the envelope forward when it comes to letting AI or an agentic agent make a decision uh, based on a set of facts. So if a server needs patching or is running out of storage, an AI agent could see that, get some feedback from a monitoring system, and then make a decision. Hey, bad thing going to happen if I don't take any action. Take action. And so
Where
I
does
think
trust
that's
play,
where,
though? Where does trust by that IT group come into play with those moves? Because it's not dreaming these scenarios up perfectly on its own, right? It's driving
yeah,
information that you already fed it of your own environment or other like Dell or
I,
Lenovo or Cisco LLMs or whatever
mhm.
databases and sources. It brings those into context. It brings them in as far as a resource, but it's making decisions given that. But where does that line get into where, okay, I don't want you to make that move unless I click you?
Yeah, and I think that's you'll hear the term human in the loop. And I
Hmm.
think that at least in our current state, understanding current state architecture, especially with the kind of the compliance dragon, that's where that trust is currently. I think in some with some specific tasks, and maybe we'll be able to show this like in a future episode or something. The agents are usually of a set role, a set amount of tools. They're given a very specific task because an agent can be very good at accomplishing a specific task versus seeing these huge, massive workflows and charts of all these different agents connected to other agents doing a lot of the complicated stuff. If you break down those really big problems into very discrete problems and then have the agent solve this much of the problem, of the next agent solve this much of the problem, it helps with repeatable, predictable results. And then the approval piece. So, hey, Brian, I've researched this, and this, and here's my thought process, and here's the problem, and here's how we need to solve it. Do you agree, yes or no? That's kind of the additional step if you really need to just have a human in the loop double checking. But for some of these flows, these troubleshooting flows, the agentic agents are getting so complex that you don't even need the human in the loop in some cases. So I think kind of the special part of this AI is agentic, and maybe that's something we should talk about is what does agentic mean? And I think the difference between Gen AI, predictive intelligence, or kind of machine learning is agentic is being trusted to have the capability to act independently, to make decisions and achieve those outcomes without the direct supervision or the constant prompts from others. So instead of typing stuff out, do this, do this, do this, it already knows what it should be doing. It already knows kind of where its boundaries are and how to act and what its role is. And I think that's what makes it kind of game changing and powerful when we talk about automation.
Yeah, because anytime with any automation, when you take that human and you say, "Okay, I need that checkpoint," you get some auto you get a lukewarm feeling of automation. You get probably less human error because the process is probably right. But in that case, you still gotta get up at midnight and say, "Yes, you can do it." You know? You haven't eliminated being up in the middle of the night to take care of an error, right?
And
Because you haven't fully trusted it.
to that point, term agentic kind of has agency in it, which refers to the power for it to act or produce results. And in both human and artificial intelligence contexts, being agentic is about that self directed action, about letting humans sleep at midnight or 3 a.m. when that storage gets full. The agent knows to provision more storage to do the thing. And I think we're still proving out how reliable it is, how much value there is there in having it do it, so that us as humans can go work on those more complicated problems that we just haven't had the time to solve because it's goes back to a resource limitation generally. So calling something or someone agentic, I mean, it means that they're motivated, resourceful, able to influence outcomes rather than being passive or controlled by an outside force. And that's kind of hammers home the point about agentic AI versus Gen AI or machine learning. And that agentic piece is, I mean, it's caught fire. AWS's agentic AI agents, Databricks, Google get everything. IBM, Salesforce, ServiceNow, every platform, every major platform has some kind of agentic AI strategy that they're looking at putting into the market and creating value both from a productivity perspective and a time savings perspective. I guess from and I again it's so new, any of those tools, any of those platforms, anything from the agentic perspective that you've had an opportunity to use or would comment on
I get into the ServiceNow
or
world. So
excites you?
yeah, so in the ServiceNow world, that's gonna be my first opportunity to get into agentic AI is in that area, and we're staging ourselves for that.
Mhm.
So I know we talked about in our another release, another episode, we talked about CMDB and our work we're doing there. So I think some of that with ITSM also, there's going to be some things there. What I worry about is some of the stuff. It may be correct um, as far as like taking a help desk ticket. It may be accurate, but how are the help desk people going to react to an agent possibly being more correct than they are in the response to an issue, right? Faster. I mean, some people will probably love it. Some
Mhm.
people will probably say, wait a minute, and question every step of it um,
Yeah.
to where it's not, I think it'll be incrementally gainful in a sense. I think they'll love it when it comes to closure notes, be article writing, but they're still going to look at it and approve it before it gets done. But at least we'll get them. A lot of times they don't write the KB articles. Now at least they'll write a forum. But there's a lot of things there that I like to see. But I'm interested in seeing how the people react to it. They're going to say, "Yeah, this is great. It'll automate this. It'll automate that." Okay, now where's the human trust in this?
Mhm.
Because they're messing around with your world. They're messing around with your people. It's like inviting a sense, a spirit into your world to do this work. And I'm interested to see how the humans react to it.
And I mean, you can probably make an argument about people being unpredictable too. I think the art of this, maybe more science, but there's certainly some art there, is I think trust is built when you have a predictable set of inputs and predictable set of outcomes. So your help desk agent shows up to work, does the job, solves issues, goes home. Agent comes, I doesn't have to come to work, but the agent's turned on, is able to solve issues, hopefully solves the issues and frees up time for the agent. And I think the way for trust to be built is just the repeated success.
Yes.
and the outcomes being executed on that it's there to do. And if it can achieve those two things, I think that's how trust is built. Um, I also think that understanding is a big part of trust. So understanding what is agentic AI, how is it built, what is the architecture of it. It's really hard to trust something that you don't understand. So I think maybe it'd probably be worth spending some time on just kind of what are the building blocks of agentic. And I think the main pieces for that are goal setting. You've got to have some kind of memory, context aware memory, so I can remember what it is you're asking, where are the data sets you're dealing with. Is it a finance problem you're trying to solve? Is it a law problem you're trying to solve? There's an orchestration component, so there's some kind of automation to this. And that might be in the form of integrations or workflows, etc. How does this agentic plan? How does it adapt? How does it learn in what seemingly feels like real time? And then kind of maybe what are some examples? So we can talk through some IT examples, HR ticketing, supply chain automation, etc. So agentic AI plans, adapts, and learns in real time. Depending on the tuning, you might have a model that you're using that's been pre-trained. And so in that case, there may not be learning, or you may shut off the ability for that model to be trained off of your data. Kind of common at this
In the
point in
very
time.
beginning, you
Yeah.
build you build up some responsives that work and
Trust. Yeah.
successful.
Yep. And so there's with the context, the agentic agent gains perception, reasoning, is able to take action, rates. You can still write prompts to kind of guide it and what its role is, what context it should be looking at, connecting it to set. And those systems combine advanced techniques like reinforcement learning, natural language processing, continuous context aware updating to behave kind of intelligently and respond responsibly in dynamic environments. Read a statistic not like yesterday. The Llama 4 model, which was released in like April this year. I think that you've got two models, but in total is about 7 point something million hours of GPU time and training. 7 point something million hours. There's uh, one of those GPUs, just like the H100 or H200, it's about 30 to 40 grand, and that's used. So training, crazy expensive, crazy intensive, which is why we pick up models and we use them. And we're happy with that. Very affordable.
Are there like okay, there's a couple I have a couple questions. So,
Yeah.
one, are there ways to test scenarios
Hmm.
to start building trust pre-implementation?
Yeah.
Are there ways of doing that? So,
Yes.
it kind of like a few years ago, I was when AI first started coming out with ServiceNow, there was a tool out there that said, "Okay, I'm gonna look at your knowledge base and all of your other sources, and I'm gonna let you know of your service tickets that you have over the last year, what knowledge base or not what knowledge resources you have match those scenarios so we know what you're successful in and we'll tell you where you're missing information so then
Hmm.
you know where to write articles about so that you have to hit like an 80 or 90% point before you want to move forward because you really don't want your users typing something into a virtual agent and say, hey, what about this? And so I don't know, I have no information about that, right? So I remember back in the day, that's what that was. Are there tests, things like that today with these agentic agents, you know, to let me know where my success rate sits before I was to release this into the production?
Yeah. And each one of those agentic platforms that was mentioned, and I can use like IBM or ServiceNow as examples, but typically each one of those platforms will have some type of evaluation tool, and that tool can evaluate your prompts. It will let you know kind of level of confidence, and you can also test your prompts ahead of time, see how they perform, test different inputs. But there's usually some type of evaluation toolkit that is associated to all of those so you can test how successful it's going to be before you release it to production. So if you wanted to create your own agentic AI agent or a skill for an agent to use or a tool for an agent to use, and then you go through, create the prompt, there is a way to test that, to evaluate that. And that's kind of just rule of thumb, part of the QA process to make sure that this thing that you're releasing is going to be successful at what it's supposed to do.
So my next question is, now that we trust it, we can put it out there. You've mentioned this earlier in this scenario. We need to also train our professionals, right? We need to the tech professionals who are in charge of organizing or using it as their friend, right? The help desk agents, the IT, the data center agents who are using it in their daily lives so that they
Hmm.
don't just see a pop up of random information coming out of nowhere and they have to decide, do I trust this or not? So we need to have some type of training for them, let them know this is where we're getting it
Hmm.
and see the source. And if you want to work on those resources and perfect those resources or keep building on those resources, there's where they are, things like that. We also have to have organizational change. Some people just don't like change. So you need those like a project manager. There's these organizational change managers out there. A good friend of mine, that's what he does for a living. He's just an organizational change manager. And I think bring people like that in, just this is a heavy lift to me. I think
Yeah.
everybody thinks I can just flick the light switch and all of a sudden AI just works. And it just doesn't, you know?
It's people process are always going to be a focal point when you're rolling out technology. And if you have really good OCM, that gives you a really good chance of adoption being really successful. It's like anything else, what's in it for me? If I'm the agent at the desk and I'm working through all these tickets, I don't have a lot of time, I'm stressed. How is this going to make my day easier? And let's say I can read really fast. So summarization isn't a lot of benefit for me. But then you show the use case of generating a knowledge article, for example, which would have taken me probably 20 or 30 minutes per article to write. Plus, that's something I don't really like doing. I love solving problems,
Right.
but
No tech
to
likes it.
then
Yeah.
have to stop, go back, take all the information out, format it, put the images in, take the screenshots, massive pain. I really don't like doing that. So I'm just going to close this ticket. And guess what? The next time I go and have to solve that problem again, I'm just going to go back to find that ticket and see what was the solution, which hopefully my counterparts on the help desk will do. But maybe I should have written a knowledge article so that they could have found it. And so,
But now I think you got to go further. Nowadays, because of all the user tools out there, you not only have to write a knowledge article about what you did and how you solved it so all of your peers can solve the same issue or recognize it, etc. But now you have to turn it and you make it user facing so that a user can type into like a Teams channel and
yep.
ask a question and get a user focused or user pointed perspective answer back to them on how to get that resolved as well, right?
Hmm.
Which is a totally different knowledge base article than what you would have written for the professional, you
Right.
know? And there's not very many techs who can turn that around and write one for the user. Here's where, if we can teach it to do so, is a benefit.
Hmm.
I get two articles for one. I can get a
Yep.
training article and I can get a professional reactive resolution article in one swoop. And now I'm really moving ahead.
And your agentic agent, which understands the environment, the context, what the goal is that's trying to solve,
Right, right.
can take action and do that, build both those articles, and you can still have the human in the loop, signs off on the article and make sure, yes, this is good for customer facing. Yes, this is good for back of the house on how to solve this issue. And then you have that knowledge there, which took the agent seconds to go through and generate for both
Mhm.
of those, which would have taken 20, 30 minutes probably per. And that's if they were able to get to it because they're still doing their day job. So, from that perspective, insane value in that use case.
Okay. So as we get towards the end here, I know one of our we've got a couple episodes coming. We've already talked about maybe we should do one on like how we should build one and things like
Uh-huh.
that. We've got a big one coming up on the risks. It's a scary story, right? It'd be great for Halloween coming around the corner, right? All the negatives, right? The risks, things that can happen. Those stories will come out in a future episode. But right now, to finish this off, there's a human creativity piece that really opens up. I know it's taking place of some human creativity, but really unleashes some human creativity. But there's also some new roles and skills it allows us to become by it being there. And that's really its purpose. And as far as what if you look at it from a director or manager perspective, I want my expertise, my experts to do expert work, not redundant work. I really don't want them taking an hour to write an article. I'd rather them move on to the next solution. Because when they're writing that article, yes, they're helping me with the future, but I got users waiting on a response, or I got an issue waiting on a response. So I'd rather them move on. Can you talk to me a little bit about just that human creativity and the new roles and skills that this thing opens up?
Yeah. So I hate the M word, but it is something that creeps up, and this is fitting for October. It's that manual zombie maintenance work. And when you start on the help desk, for example, you'll solve issues, you'll solve repeated issues, you'll pick up other things. Eventually, at some point in time in your career, you are going to reach max capacity of what you can do creatively, problem solving wise, etc., because you've taken on as much as you can handle. And there is tech debt that still exists in their environment that, for one reason or another, is just not prioritized and is not going down. So tech debt is increasing. And what you're missing is some type of solution that would be able to take that tech debt, that manual maintenance zombie work, and solve it for you, reduce it so that you have more creative time, creative freedom to spend solving those larger picture problems, solving that tech debt, preventing that tech debt. But because you're so overwhelmed with that manual maintenance zombie work, that's all you're doing. And I think that is at least one opportunity for agentic agents from the agent perspective on the team to be able to do creative work, create these agents and train them to go and solve those problems so that when something comes in, it's not that tech debt, it's not that maintenance work. You're actually doing something that you want to do. And I think that goes a long way towards career fulfillment and just happiness in the workplace. And that's a massive piece, which is really abstract. It's hard to quantify, it's hard to qualify. But I think that is also a major proposition that we value prop that we've got to figure out how do we put metrics around that and the fulfillment, CSATs, etc. So I think that's a
I agree.
massive part of it.
All right. Any last note you want to say before we conclude?
Skynet's not an instruction model, so let's not train off of that.